Welcome to the MrpTech podcast. This is episode 10, and my name is Matt. This is a weekly podcast where I review multiple platforms and technologies to see which works best for you. If this is your first time listening, or if you have been listening to us for the last few episodes, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes or your podcast player of choice so that we can get more listeners. In last week's episode, we discussed why I think that people should try the Linux operating system. I've talked about its security. I've talked about its ease of use and how you can take an old computer and bring it back to life, how you can fix things with your other computers that might be wrong with them, such as if they get a virus, you can use Linux to get rid of that virus. And the other thing is it's something that if you're learning and you like to learn about new things, Linux is a great resource to help you learn more about technology and help you understand how things are actually working. I'm going to continue that conversation in a little bit, but before we get into the next part of our discussion about Linux, I've got a few things to talk about as far as Apple goes. Now, over the last few weeks and months, Apple has been pushing updates to their iOS devices quite frequently. When they do this, they will often automatically download to your device without telling you. And sometimes you may have that feature turned off, but they still notify you that there is an update that is available. And they want you to update because of security reasons and bug fixes and a whole variety of different reasons why they want you to upgrade to the latest and greatest thing that they're putting out. The problem is that sometimes the latest and greatest isn't really the latest and greatest. Sometimes updates are pushed out too soon. They could break things that you need to use every single day. If you have an app that you need to use and the update breaks something with that, then you're sort of out of luck because you can't go back to what you had before in these iOS devices. So on my iPhone, every day I get a notification about an update. And every single day, this notification says, would you like to upgrade now? Or would you like to upgrade later? And I hit upgrade later, and I go on with my day. I'm not ready to upgrade yet. And then as time goes on, another notification pops up. There's an update available. Would you like to upgrade now? Or would you like to upgrade later? And I click upgrade later. And then another day goes by. I'm still not ready to update. Notification pops up. Would you like to update? I've already said I want to update later. Please don't remind me of this anymore. There's no option to turn this off. So now I've hit update later. And now a passcode comes up. You can update your iOS device between 11 and 7 in the morning as long as you're plugged in, and just type in your passcode and we'll do it for you. Well, that's not what I picked. I want to upgrade later. I don't want to do it tonight. I want to do it at a different time when I'm ready to. Now, wait a second. Now you're telling me if I type in my passcode, you're going to update from between 11 and 7 in the morning. Luckily, I was smart enough to realize this wasn't the case, and I didn't type in my passcode. But how many of us look at our phones, and as soon as we see that passcode, maybe that's on our device, we type it in because we're used to doing that so often. I would have been really upset had I updated my device in the middle of the night and not known about it. So every day became twice a day. And now I'm getting these messages twice a day. And it can't be turned off. You can go into settings and you can turn off automatic app updates so your apps don't update. But every time iOS has a major update for the operating system, you can't turn that off. You can't turn off the fact that they're going to keep pushing you until you update. Now I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about MacBooks, and I want to talk about how Apple has constantly moved to thinner and thinner devices, saying thinner is lighter, it's better, more portable. Thinner is not always better. For instance, on my older computer, I had an Ethernet port and I had a FireWire port on that computer. And I use my stuff in a production environment, and that's the reason why I don't update as often as I would like to. And when you're in a production environment, things need to work on a consistent basis. And sometimes updates will break things that are vitally important for your production. So I may wait a week or two, I may wait a month or two to do an update on my production machines, because I want to make sure that everything is going to work when I need it to work, and that I don't get in a situation where something is broken when I need it the most. And so with these thinner computers, now things are being isolated. There's less options for you. You're spending the same amount of money. You're buying things with less ports, less USB ports. Yes, no Ethernet port, no FireWire port. Oh, but we have a new port that's called a Thunderbolt port. And if you buy the adapter, then we can still do the same things that you did before. The problem is when you plug in an adapter, that's one more piece to a puzzle in a production environment when you need something to work, and you need something to work now. For instance, I have two production environments. One for this podcast and other podcasts that I do, and another is a live show environment where I'm producing live sound for a band. And when you have cables running from a soundboard to an adapter into your computer, the slightest little bump or motion will stop the recording that you're trying to make, or lose the connection between your peripheral device and your computer. So with all of these extra adapters and cords, there's more things moving around than you typically would want to. And so thinner necessarily isn't better. And trying to take away all ports, the newest MacBooks have one port. It's a USB-C port. And how is this going to work for people who are in production environments where you have one port? Now you're going to need a dock of some kind that plugs into that, where you can take that Thunderbolt or USB-C port and you can plug in other devices into that port. And all of those are going to need adapters to do your FireWire or your Ethernet or anything else that you need, or USB, those type of devices. So now we're talking about 3 different adapters or 4 different adapters that you're going to need that plug into one port. How is this going to work? Now, don't get me wrong, Apple's a great company and they produce great hardware. Their operating systems run amazing and great, but it's not without problems. And so I can't believe that a computer company wouldn't give an option for someone who is a little more sophisticated and understands how things work. And they should know that certain people can't upgrade right away. They should give you an option to put off updates by several weeks or a month, just to make sure nothing is going to break in apps that you have. For instance, on my iPad, I've got a soundboard app that will help me connect to my mixer. And if I'm not careful, if there's an update from Apple, that will break, and then I will not be able to use it in the future until something is fixed. So be careful when it comes to updating things quickly. If you are at home and you update quite often, that's great. But if you need something, if you have apps that you use on a consistent basis, then maybe consider holding off for a couple days or a week or two before doing a major update. And to give you an example of something that happened to me this week, last week's episode, you didn't hear it in the episode, but it took me 3 tries to be able to do this because of certain things not working the way that they were supposed to because of updates. Also, at the same time, on both of my iOS devices, the App Store updater had just stopped working, and there wasn't really anything I could do about it. I would try to update apps and hit the update button, and they wouldn't do anything. They would just go back to bringing up the update button, and nothing would be downloaded. And you know what? I came across a fix for that. So if you're ever in a situation where you have apps that won't update, what you do is you open your App Store up on your phone or iPad, and at the bottom left there is a little button that says Updates. If you tap that button that update button 10 times, what it's going to do is going to refresh the App Store, and then you should be able to run your update. So if you're ever in a problem where you can't update your apps, that's how you fix it. You hit the update button 10 times, and it will refresh the App Store. And if you have any apps that were downloading before, just hit the stop button and hit the update button again, and you will be on your way to updating all of your apps. That was a little trick that I learned this week, and hopefully it might help some of you. Okay, and so that's enough of my rant about Apple and the stress Apple has caused me this week. So I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to continue the conversation on Linux that we had from last week. And last week I mentioned the first Linux distro that I tried was called Ubuntu. And I'm going to review Ubuntu 16.04. I talked a little bit about it last week. And I installed this on a Dell laptop. And I also installed it on VirtualBox on a System 76 Gazelle Pro computer. And I wanted to try it in a couple of different ways so I kind of get an experience of what it was like to run in both situations. Because I talked a little bit about VirtualBox a few weeks ago. I've talked about old computers last week, how you can take Linux and run it on an old computer. And it should run fairly well. So first of all, I installed Ubuntu on a Dell laptop. I'm going to talk about some of the good things first. The install process is very simple. It's really, once you install the USB drive and you put it into your computer, it's really a matter of a few clicks. Install Ubuntu. You're gonna basically ask if it wants to do updates now or later, and within a few clicks, you set your time zone where you are. You name your computer or set a password, and then basically after that, it installs everything on its own. Really fast, no problems whatsoever. So then when it finishes install, it will give you the option to restart your computer. And when you do that, you can take your flash drive out and it should boot right into Ubuntu. And I've been using Ubuntu on and off since 2009. And for the last few years, they have been upgrading and tweaking Ubuntu to do various things, and they made a lot of major changes to it. And in that process, they sacrificed, I think, some quality issues over the last few years. And this release of Ubuntu, I think, is completely fixed a lot of those problems. This version of Ubuntu is crazy fast. I was surprised how fast this ran on a 2008 laptop. Now, I have, over the last year to 2 years, made some minor upgrades to this laptop. I increased the RAM and I switched out the hard drive to an SSD drive, which is going to help to some extent. But older releases of Ubuntu I have tried on this same setup, and I've noticed it is so fast that it actually can keep up with me, and I'm a fast typer. If I'm trying to search for something, I can hit the super key and I can type something in really quickly that I want to open up, and it's really right with me the whole time. There's no lag, which is something that I have dealt with for a while with Ubuntu. Sometimes it was a little slower than I had wanted it to be. Another key feature that I noticed, and a lot of times with this old Dell laptop, it's got a Broadcom wireless chip for Wi-Fi, and a lot of times the Wi-Fi wasn't detected right away, and I would have to go in and change a few settings before the wireless would work. And in this case, the wireless was detected automatically, no problems whatsoever, and I didn't even have to make any adjustments or look for additional software to turn on or connect to a router through Wi-Fi. So I've seen some great improvements with Ubuntu, and I really have enjoyed reviewing it over the last few weeks. As far as bad things go, okay, I don't really have a lot of bad things to say about it. I have heard a few things from other people that have tried it, and maybe for a few more technically savvy people, they may have certain things that they need to do that cause some issues for them, but I haven't really run into anything like that. The thing that I want to do is, as a first time, someone who is looking at Ubuntu for the first time, parts of it actually look sort of bland. Ubuntu has looked the same for a really long time. The default wallpaper isn't really the greatest. It's sort of a mix of pink and purple, and really that's sort of their brand that they're going for. And every release they change the desktop just a little bit. It looks very similar, but the overall look hasn't changed in a really long time. Some of the icons on the menu bar look a little outdated. So there's this mix of something that looks really fresh and new with something that looks really outdated and needs a little polishing. So that's not really a bad thing, but just from a perspective of somebody who's using it for the very first time, it sort of looks, it may look a little strange. Some parts are really polished, some parts not so much. And the one comment that I have, this is going to seem like a really silly comment, but this is something that, as a former Windows user, in previous versions of Windows, there's not much that you can do for tweaking the way Windows looks and customizing it to the way you want. So I was always trained to, change the desktop wallpaper to something that you like every so often, and it helps, it keeps things interesting, keeps things looking a little different, even though you can't really change the way that it looks. The wallpapers in Ubuntu have just been terrible, and that's not really anything that I need to go into a lot of detail about. The default wallpapers, they usually hold a contest, and people can submit photos for or backgrounds for these wallpapers, and they pick out of thousands of pictures default wallpaper. And usually in there's one or two that I really like, but they put maybe 10 default pictures in there, and most of them just have always been bad, and I've never really liked them. That's just my opinion. I'm sure other people out there may differ in my opinion, but sometimes the wallpapers are just awful, and that just takes away from the whole perspective of a first-time user wanting to look around and change a few things and try to get used to a new system. If they just added a little bit more polish to everything that they did, the overall experience would be even better than what it is now, which is a good experience. Don't take away what I'm saying about the bad things as a bad experience. Ubuntu is fast, it's reliable, it's really easy to install, and it makes computing kind of fun. And if they would just go to the next step and polish it just a little bit more, this would be something that really blows people away when they are looking at it for the very first time. Now, some of the reasons why some of this polish is overlooked is the company that makes Ubuntu. That company is called Canonical. They are also working on Ubuntu tablets and Ubuntu smartphones right now, and an operating system called Ubuntu Touch, which is leading the way to the future. And one of the cool things about those phones and tablets is that they're going to be able to be a mobile device as well as a desktop computing device. So you would take your Ubuntu tablet or phone and you could connect it to a monitor with an HDMI cable, and all of a sudden your tablet or phone becomes a desktop computer, and you can run desktop applications from your phone or tablet, which is something that we're not really seeing anywhere else. They call it convergence. So they have been sort of sidetracked with a few different things, and that sort of takes away from the Ubuntu desktop release. That's Ubuntu 16.04. So there are really cool and innovative things that are coming out of all of this, and I just wanted to review it quickly for those of you who may be interested in trying it out on an old computer somewhere or in VirtualBox, something like that. I'd say go ahead and try to download it. If you have any questions or problems along the way, you can send me an email. I'd be glad to help you out. It's one of my things that I really enjoy doing, is really enjoy helping other people learn about Linux and learn about how to make some changes to learn a little bit more about computers. All right, and that's going to do it for my review on Ubuntu Linux. The next thing I want to say is I've got some product reviews coming along the way, and I don't want to give them away just yet, but I'm excited to finally review some products. Just was contacted this last week on another product review, and I'm looking forward to talking about those. If you have a product that you would like me to review, go ahead and contact me. Or if you have questions, you can contact me as well. I'm going to give those to in just a minute. But before I do that, I have one app pick to finish out this podcast. And I've been talking a little bit about production environments today. And if you are someone who uses YouTube to post videos occasionally, and you want to keep track of those videos and how often they've been seen and how often they've been used, there's an app for iOS that is called YouTube Creator Studio, and it's a little different than the standard YouTube app. This gives you access to the channel that you post your YouTube videos to. You can keep track of how often it's been seen, how often, how popular your video is. You can set whether or not your video is private, unlisted, or public. So there's a lot of neat apps that can do this. And normally I would go to a desktop browser and just go to YouTube from there and go into my Creator Studio. And this makes it really easy on the go to make changes to your YouTube channel. So this is called YouTube Creator Studio. And if you're somebody who maybe has post video or something to YouTube, that might be a little handy for you if you're interested in doing something like that. All right, that's going to do it for this week. Check out my Facebook page, MrpTech Reviews. So it's facebook.com/MrpTech Reviews. You can send me an email with questions. I'd be glad to answer them either on the podcast or just in private. And that email is mrptechreviews@gmail.com. You can go to my website, mrptechreviews.wix.com/home, and send me your feedback. Give me ideas for future shows, questions, and keep listening. I hope you're really enjoying this, and we're going to keep going for Wednesday releases. This one got out a little late because of a couple of things that are going on with me. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week.